recorded.
Okay, okay. So, hi Pius. So,
Help.
yeah, so let's start the session now. We are 3 minutes late into the session. Okay. So, can
Yes.
you briefly introduce yourself, like about your recent projects and all?
Yes. So right now I am currently working for NPCI.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm associated with the BMAP. So you heard about the BMAP.
Okay.
So it is similar to like what PhonePe or Google Pay is doing. So we
Mm-hmm.
are providing payment services to the user.
Okay.
Apart from that, like you can also able to pay the bills or do the mobile recharges. So that's the additional facilities we are providing.
Okay.
And currently our tech stack was on Java.
Okay.
So for the backend, we are using Spring Boot framework for that, and
Okay.
for the ORM mapping, we are using Hibernate,
Okay.
and for the database part, like currently we are using Postgres,
Mm-hmm.
and for the catching purpose, like we are using currently Redis.
Okay. Okay.
So that's all about my technical field. And previously, like I have did internship and full time experience on Dish TV India.
Mm-hmm.
So where I mainly work on little bit of .NET and database part.
Okay.
So that's all about my technical background.
Okay. So, explain about your project, like how was the flow end to end?
So basically, there are mainly three main services like microservices which are running.
Mm-hmm.
So one is one we will say like for the onboarding and that sort of handle that service which it will handle.
Okay.
So suppose it will be like X, and one is service is basically which will responsible for transaction that service,
Mm-hmm.
and other one is for like mandate part. So that is auto pay and that sort of things. So there are mainly three services, microservices like which are running, and we are currently using something like a SOA model, so service oriented architecture we are currently using.
Okay.
So in that, like we are database part, like we are every service is basically consuming that as a dependencies. So
Mm-hmm.
we are not currently using microservices, but in the future part we are moving on to that. So we have a one common database that every service will consuming. So that's all about like a little bit of the project architecture.
Okay, okay. So have you made use of any system design kind of thing? Like any creational design pattern have you implemented in that?
So for the creational, like we have like singleton factory design, and most of the times like we are using builder patterns
Hmm.
since we have a like large complex data. So for filtering that, like we are using builder patterns.
Okay, okay. So what's the importance of builder? Like factory design pattern was already there, which is used to create the object. And what's the importance of having builder design pattern?
So builder design pattern are basically like when we have like larger data fields in the certain classes.
Mm-hmm.
So in that basically we have to write the constructors or that setters the getters to handle that or set the values.
Mm-hmm.
So that if you have like more there like fields, so it will be cumbersome to do that. So for simplifying that, we have like builder patterns. So we can basically build the pattern in the runtime. So that will be easy for ourselves also, because like most of the data like fields does not able to use. So for that purpose, like we are using builder
Any
patterns.
other reason, or this is the only reason?
uh, Maybe there is a other reason also, but the main
Yeah,
reason is like yes, yes.
and factory, when you are creating constructor, we have to maintain the order. Like the order, the constructor parameters are there in the same order. We have to set the data. But in case of builder design pattern, we can set any data first, any data second. The order is not mandatory to
Yes, yes,
maintain.
yes, yes,
That is
yes, yes, that's
a major advantage of builder design pattern. Okay.
okay, okay.
So can you write a code on creational design pattern?
uh, okay, so which one like I will write?
Any like break free singleton design pattern?
Okay, for the singleton I know, like break free I'm not able to
Yeah, normal
for that.
singleton design pattern. You can try it out. Like, can
Yes,
you tell
yes,
me
yes.
like what is singleton design pattern?
So singleton is basically if you want to restrict the certain object to only one for a certain class, and that will be shared across the application. So for this purpose, like we are using singleton
And why it is
pattern.
required? Why is it necessary to implement singleton?
So like in certain scenario, we like do not want to create a new object for that. So if we someone are able to create a new object, so it will basically point to the same reference. So for
No,
this even like for the
why it is necessary to point to the same object reference? Means there should be some use case scenario, right? because of
Yes, yes.
which this problem is being
So
solved. Yeah.
So basically, one thing I will identify that as a security reason also,
Hmm.
because if we want to such manipulate the data, so by manipulating it, if we like create a new object for that, so basically singleton what it will do is it will not data will not get modified like in that way.
For security purpose, there is a separate set of JWT authentication or OAuth kind of thing is already implemented. Then
Okay,
what's the point of implementing singleton there? If you are implementing Spring Boot microservice, automatically that security part is being thought about, right? That has been implemented already.
okay. So one thing is like for the what I will recall is like for the memory management is there.
Okay.
So for if you like if there is a different type of object will created, so that will be high memory consuming.
Hmm.
And
No, it's not like that.
okay,
Whenever you are trying to hit the database, that's, I'm telling you one of the use case scenario, like whenever you are trying to hit the database again and again, so it will create a new instance at every point of time whenever you are hitting it. So I don't want to create an instance of it, like if you see in the big billion days, and there are certain kind of products which are again and again bought, like there are 80% of the products which are not bought, and 20% products are again and again bought by 80% of the customers. So for that sake, what we can do, we can create a singleton type of design patterns, which it will not allow to hit the database again and again. It will create a one instance only. Okay, so that multiple instance creation is not required to be created.
okay, okay, I will memorize that.
Yeah. So one of the other example is there for session factory. So one session factory can have multiple sessions, right? So if one of the sessions are gone, then other sessions will be open. But one session factory will be there. That is also one of the example. If you know in Hibernate, there is session and session factory. Do you know about that?
Yes, 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 I heard about
Yeah, so that is
design.
also an example of singleton design pattern. So can you write one simple code on singleton design pattern?
Yes, yes, I can write.
Yeah.
So should I share my screen?
Yes, yes, yes. You can share.
So in that way, like we can do. So if a object is not created, then we will basically create an object and return that. If it is like already created, then I will return the same instance of that uh, object. So in that way, we can achieve single.
Okay, this is for single threaded application. For multi-threaded application, how will it work?
Yes. So for the multi-threading, like we can use synchronize keyword here. So for that, like we, so only one thread can access that instance method.
Okay, any other change?
I think that should work because synchronize basically synchronize all the method. So that only one thread can access at a certain time that method.
Okay, so the better way is to have a double check locking concept. You know about that?
Yes.
So that one is a better way basically, because if let's suppose there are 100 lines of code in that method, ideally it should not be, but let's suppose 100 lines of methods and we don't want to synchronize all the lines, only 8 to 10 lines are important to get synchronized, and other 80 lines are not meant to be synchronized. Then if you are putting it over method level, then all lines will be synchronized, right?
Yes. So okay.
So it's good to have a double check locking concept.
Yes. Synchronized. I'm not able to get the syntax, but like
You can
there only we
explain me
can
like,
basically.
you can explain me out like what you are thinking.
So like there is a one like lock is there
Mm-hmm.
basically on the map on the code level like which we
Okay.
can there. So that will be like synchronize a certain block of code only.
Mm-hmm.
So whole method does not get locked at a certain time. So if we want to do some operation later,
Mm-hmm.
so which we can do according to our way, but that method which that code basically gets synchronized. So in that
Yeah,
way,
yeah,
right? I'm
it's
thinking.
fine. Almost you have done, but within synchronized, again you have to do the check, like if reference is null or not. Means two times you have to check. That is double check locking concept, right?
Okay.
So you have written if condition once, it's fine. Null check is done once, but after synchronization also you have to write one more if condition to check for that reference whether that is null or not. So now you have to explain like why we are writing two times.
Okay.
Is synchronized is of the class type, right? So why you have put small letter in singleton? Are you putting the reference over here?
Can you come again?
Like within the synchronized block, like what you have written? Singleton.c, what is it?
Singleton, no, basically class I'm writing.
Okay, okay, okay. So now implement a double check lock, which I told you.
So basically that keyword is getting like same, so that's right.
Mm-hmm. Which keyword? Acha, you can change
I'm
the name also, no? You can put ref also, reference also. Anything you can put. Now it's fine, you have made the changes, it's fine. So now can you explain like why we are doing the double check here? What's the importance of doing double check?
Can you think 1 minute like
Yeah, 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 sure. And
So basically, in that case, what we are doing is like if the object is null, then we are going in the inside,
mhm,
right?
mhm.
So
Okay,
we are basically synchronize that method, right? So inside the method, there is like chances like if the object is you will say
it's not a method, it's actually a block of statements.
yes, yes,
Method
right,
is
yes,
above public static
yes,
separate.
yes, right, right, right. That's a block. Okay,
Yeah, yeah, continue.
okay. Last level. Okay.
Anyways, first time if it goes, it will be null only.
What are you saying?
Whenever first time the code will flow, it will be null only at first instance.
Right.
The singleton reference will be null only. The second time, if it is going to enter the same thread, then it will check. Then the null condition will be false. So here only double check locking concept will help. The first time any new instances coming into it, so singleton equal to null condition will be satisfied. Then synchronization will be there. The block will be synchronized. Then it will check again that whether that current thread is the right thread to enter into it or not. So it will validate that. Okay, so after that validation is successful, then it will go inside and return the instance. And let's suppose second thread is coming. Okay, so what will happen? So already there is first thread. So first time the second thread will come again in the first if condition. So what will happen? The second condition, second thread reference is null. Okay, so first if condition will be satisfied. Are you getting?
Yes, yes.
I'm talking about a second thread. So when second thread is going inside, first condition will get satisfied. It's equal to null, so it will go inside. There within synchronized block, it will check that whether the first thread has released a lock or not. So when second thread is coming during that time, first thread has not released a lock yet. So if that is the case, second thread will not be able to go inside the second if condition. So like that, double check locking concept will occur. So let's suppose
Okay,
first thread has acquired a lock for 5 seconds, and second thread is coming to acquire the lock in the second.
okay.
Okay, so second came, then third second, then fourth second, then fifth second. For 3 seconds, more the first thread has acquired a lock, so it will not allow the second thread to go into that second if statement.
Yes, right.
And when that 5 second period is over, when first thread has released the object lock, then second thread will go inside the second if condition. That is the importance of double check locking concept. And you are
Okay,
not synchronizing the entire method, so it will increase the effectiveness of the code. Like the performance will be faster.
okay. Fine.
So now if there is 100 lines of code, I want to synchronize only these 2 3 lines, then it automatically the performance will be faster, right? We are not synchronizing entire lines of code by not writing at the method declaration level.
Okay.
Now you got the concept. This is very
Yes, yes.
important concept. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's fine. So do you know like how can you break the singleton design pattern? There are 3 ways
Yes,
to break the.
yes, yes,
Yeah,
yes.
can you tell
So
about it?
one is like during the deserialization one,
Okay.
and second is a reflection,
Reflection. Okay. Okay then.
and okay, and third is by clonable. If the class implement clonable, then also we can break the
Now
say,
what will happen if a class implement clonable?
so will it will basically clone the object of that class, and it will create a new object, basically new reference of that
So we have
object.
to write that logic somewhere, right? Automatically it will not clone, right?
Yes,
So from object class there is a clone method will be there.
yes, yes,
So
yes, yes.
that will be
So
overridden.
y-
Okay.
yes,
So if you override the clone method, then automatically whenever you're creating the object of it, it will create a new instance with clone method.
yes, right.
Yeah. So these are also very important concepts. Okay. Okay, it's
Okay,
fine. So I'm sending you one code. You have to tell me the output of it. I've given you one code. Can you tell me the output of this code?
So like A will be printed. Okay.
Okay.
Uh, and then bat method call. So it will throw an error.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So like here only like if there is an error is getting thrown, so here it will not be like catch in the exception block, right?
Mm-hmm.
So in that case, like it will A will be printed,
Mm-hmm.
and then that method get called, so it will throw an error.
Mm-hmm.
So it will the code will basically break there,
Mm-hmm.
and the finally block get executed because that's like always get executed. So output will be A and D.
OENT. Okay. Okay. Good. Yeah. Okay. So can you tell me like how Hashmap works internally?
Okay, so basically, in the hash map, like it will something like a key value pair is there. So in which there is two main things. Like one is the deciding the bucket in which the element goes. So by using the hash code value, so it will basically decide the in which bucket the wanna goes. And there is like one like method that will be like equals. So it will basically check that if the certain key is so it will basically compare the values of the certain, like you will say, of the in the bucket. If the bucket is get same,
Mm-hmm.
so it will basically check the if there is like two object are equal or not. So using equals method, it will basically decide if the two keys basically getting equal or not.
So if let's suppose two keys are same, okay. So two keys are having the same hash code, then what will happen?
So okay, so if two keys are same, so it will have the same hash code, right?
Mhm.
So it will basically goes in the same bucket.
Okay.
Okay, and basically then it will basically check the content of that. So if the values are getting same, so it will basically override that. If it is not, so it will basically add to the linked list, like it will internally add to the link list. So internally it maintain a linked list order, something like that, to
Mhm.
basically get the all the if the same if it has a same bucket. So it will internally has like chains of values there. So yes, so it's something like that.
Yeah, so till what point it may have that data? It cannot have like infinite amount of data. There should be certain amount, right? Okay, till that point only it will go.
Okay, so there is like some threshold values there.
Mhm.
So when that threshold value is getting reached, so it will get converted to the balanced binary tree internally.
Okay.
So that will the overall complexity will be getting reduced to O of n to log n by converting to the tree structure.
Okay, so initially how much it was time complexity?
So initially, if you have for the accessing the data, right?
Mm-hmm.
So initially, if it is not like that big, so we can access in constant time.
Okay.
Okay, but when the chain get bigger,
Mm-hmm.
so when we get want to access the data, and in the worst case, if it in the last element of the linked list,
Mm-hmm.
so it will basically iterate over the linked list to check where was my keys. So it will be we have to iterate over the length of the linked list. So that will be of O of n. But if it exceeds some certain threshold, so it automatically converted to balance tree. So balance tree basically maintain the order in some hierarchy level. So it will basically not go to the every element to check that. So it will overall complexity getting reduced, so if it exceeds some threshold, so it's something like that internally.
Okay, okay. So it will convert to red black tree, right? So what will
Yes,
be
yes.
the time complexity of that red black tree?
So that would be login
Oh,
for
login.
the.
Yeah. Okay. So have you made use of any Java 8 features in your project?
Yes, yes, yes. So most of the times, we are using Stream APIs to filtering the data for the for that the concept we are currently using most of the times, most often.
Okay, okay. So have you made use of optional class?
Yes, yes. Optional class like we have used.
Okay. So can you write a code like to check whether the data is existing or not? Like if data is existing, then we have to fetch the data, or else we have to print the error message, like no data is present. So can you do it with optional class?
Yes, yes, we can do. Like, can you just explain like if the data is, I mean, miss that. If the
Yeah, so if data exists, means if data is present in that, then we have to print the data. What's the actual value of the data? But if data is not present, then we have to throw error with certain
okay, okay,
message like data is not present.
okay.
Getting it right?
Yes, yes,
There is one method also with the
yes,
help of
yes,
which you can do
yes,
it
yes.
directly. Yeah.
Okay, so suppose like there is one repos there, right?
Hmm.
So we are getting like one method is there like find. Uh, Suppose find by we are doing find by name,
Okay.
so it will basically like fetch the data from the name only, and suppose we are passing here name.
Hmm.
Okay, find name is there. Okay, so like there is like method is if exist is there like, so if exist like I will get the data, or else like I will
Are you sure there is if exist method is there?
uh, I'm not like recall like maybe if present is there like, right.
Yeah.
So yes, so if present, so uh, it will basically we are basically get the data, or like if present
Why are you
then
putting it all in one single line? Is it a good practice to put everything in one single line?
no basically. Okay, so all is basically we can like so in that way like we can do, and if you want to get the data then there is a get method is there,
Hmm.
so that we can basically get the data,
Hmm.
uh, and basically we store in the user here.
What have you written? If present, then method you have written. Why that method sign you have given?
There only.
Why you have given like this? So within if present, we have to pass that reference, optional reference. If you are doing it that way, but if you are making use of optional class reference, then directly you can make use of if present or else, and if present or else throw. There are two methods are there. So both will you can pass two parameters in comma separated fashion.
Okay, so like we can write it a present or else like that only.
The optional reference you can make use of, and then we can call like if present or else. Okay, and then you can pass it within the parameter. Like if data is present, then you have to print the data, or else you have to throw the exception or a message like that.
Okay.
Okay, so it actually takes two parameters. That is the way. Or else the simplest way you can do, right? You can have the data, the repository data which is coming, and you can store it in the optional reference, and directly you can fetch the data. And initially the data will be there, optional reference. So you can call that if present method. So if that reference dot if present, if data is present, then within that you have to print the data. Then else you can throw the exception. You
Yes,
can
so
keep
we
it
can,
simple.
then we have to write like if it's present then otherwise I will throw like that.
Yeah, if reference dot if present, that
Okay.
data fetch data
Yes, yes,
reference you can make use
yes,
of.
yes, got it.
So keep it simple. Don't complicate things.
Okay, okay. Basically, I'm not like comfortable about the syntax right now, so like that's why.
Yeah, yeah. Don't make it complicated. If you put all in one single line, it looks very complicated. Try to keep it very simple. If you're not understanding, try to put an if else condition. Like if data
Yes,
is
yes.
present, then print the data, else throw the error. Just put it in simple if else condition.
Okay.
Don't continuously do a method chaining. Method chaining is not required. You can just call the method find by name, store it in the reference, and use that reference for further checks. And is present is a method basically.
Yes, yes, I'm just right.
And there you don't have to write method, because if present or else, after that you are writing a method. Okay, so that is actually the method name. But here you are calling is present method. It's itself is a method. Okay,
Okay,
you have to understand these things.
okay, got it. Like,
So let's suppose
so,
here you have to create your own custom exception. Then how will you create your own custom exception? Let's suppose I want to throw bad method exception. So how will you create that custom exception?
so basically in that case, like we want to create some runtime exception. So there is like our class should extend the runtime exception, right?
Okay.
And in that, in the constructor only, we can basically pass the message, or if
Mm-hmm.
we want some default, then we can create it,
Okay.
and we can call the super method with that message. So in that way, we can basically create custom exception.
Okay. Okay. Okay, got it. So, okay, so in streams, have you made use of streams?
Stream.
Yeah,
Yes,
streams.
yes, yes, yes.
Yeah, so basically there is a scenario like there is an department, okay? So it can be like a HR department, or it can have a different, let's suppose electricity department or IT department, are different kind of department, okay? So there are like 50 employees are there. So I want to basically find it out like which employee belongs to which particular department. You're getting it right? Like there are
Okay,
100 employees in a company, let's suppose, and
okay, okay.
10 employees are present in IT department, 10 employees are present in let's suppose HR department, 10 employees are present in managerial department. They are all different departments.
Right, right.
So how will you write a code to basically map that?
So basically, for that, how many peoples are belonging to certain department, right?
Mm-hmm.
So for the IT, there is some set of peoples which is belonging to IT,
Mm-hmm.
right? And for the uh, like some other department, like for the QA something like department, some
you
peoples
have
are
you
belong.
have the employee list basically.
Okay,
Okay,
okay, fine.
so it will have like employee ID, employee name, and within that
Okay,
there is a department also. Department
okay,
data is also there within the employee object.
okay, okay, fine.
So let's suppose the employee 1, employee 2, employee 3, employee 4. So employee 1 can have a department, new department D1. Okay, and employee 3 can also have a new department D1, and employee 2,
Okay,
employee 4 can have department D2, D2. So the
okay,
output should be like employee 1, it should have D1, D3, employee 2, D2, D4. Like that,
okay,
the data should be printed. So can you do it using streams?
okay, okay. Like just I'm charging. Just give me a second.
Yeah, yes. Sure. 1 second. Huh? Yes.
Okay, so okay. So in that case, like we can like have some we have some list of department with the we have like some key value pairs. So in the key, like I will put at a department, right? And in a certain department I will basically map it to the list of employees. So in that way, like if like HR department there is certain set of employees, so it will be something like that our map is. So in that way we can basically do that.
Yeah, so how will you do it?
So there is like group by method is there, like that will basically do it.
Why collectors is small in letter?
Okay. If we can use method reference also there. So okay, so in that way, like we can basically do that. So it will return the map of
Okay.
a string. Okay, uh, and a list of employees. Okay, so in that way, like you can do that.
Okay. So what it will print in the output?
So it will basically something like that. Suppose if we have like IT department is there, so key is IT and the value is basically the all the like employees that belong to that department. So it's something like that. And suppose we have like QA department there, so it will print that. So it will something like that. It will.
And okay, so I want, let's suppose, a count of employees in IT department, QA department, HR departments. How many
So
employees?
yes, so in that case, like we can use counting method is there.
Hmm. Collectors dot continue.
So in that way, it will basically count the. So it will not. It will basically return the maybe long. I think it will return.
Hmm. Okay. So can you explain about the immutability concept? What is immutable class in Java?
So immutable is something like that cannot be changed.
Mm-hmm.
So that basically immutability. So like for example, a string class is immutable. So when we create the like suppose if we do some operations on the string, so it will basically create a new object in the heap memory.
Okay.
So it will basically not change the original content. So that what it immutable means.
Okay. Any other features of immutability? Like if there is a new class,
Yes.
then how can you make it an immutable class? Let's
So
suppose it contains certain list of data, list of elements are present. Certain fields are there, like ID, mobile number, age, address, anything, and list of students are there, and the class is there. I want to make it an immutable class. So how will you do that?
so okay. Cannot change. Okay, so basically one thing is that like I will basically create the class as a final.
Mm-hmm.
So for the final, like it will not get change. It will not get subclassed,
Mm-hmm.
and I will declare all the field as a final. So that
Okay.
also not get be like inherit or getting override. So in that case, like also I will. Provide all the I will not provide any setters method. I will only provide the getter method in the class that class. So if the class contains like some mutable things, so that can be changed, like suppose a list is there, so in that case like I will return the copy of that, so the original list that does not get modified. So in that way like we can implement our own custom immutable class.
Okay. And the fields you are already putting it as final, then what's the point of removing setter method? can't able to set the field values, right, if it is final.
Okay, so like what? Yes. So for setting the fields, we are basically use a constructor for that.
Mhm. Yeah, that is fine, but we are removing setter, but getter will be there, and
Yes,
we
yes,
are
get it.
keeping the field members as final also. So my question is like, we are already removing the setter method, then what's the point of keeping it final? Why field members are kept as final?
So basically, final means like it cannot be like once we like create that field. Suppose initialize that fields,
Mhm.
so it will not get changed. So that we are what we are doing for making the final. So it will be constant value.
Okay, so that means it will not change. It's final, right? Then we can have setter method also. Why we are keeping one of them and removing another? Do you know about shallow copy and deep copy concepts?
Yes.
So can you relate it with this? In immutability, is there a concept of shallow and deep copy?
In the context of like that, we are removing the like setters matter, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay.
You know what is shallow copy and what is deep copy?
So, like in the deep copy, we are basically like create a copy of that object simply. But in the deep copy, we are like what we are doing is like suppose we have a deep copy of something. So we basically pass that reference to like in the method. So the like the value, if even the one value get modified, so the changes get reflect on the other one.
Is it a
So
deep copy or is it a shallow copy?
it, it's an it's in shallow copy. What I'm telling.
You are selling. We were telling it under deep copy.
No, no, I'm telling about the shallow copy basically.
No, you told like in deep copy this thing happens like that. You told. That's why I asked like, will it come under
Yes,
shallow copy or deep copy?
yes, yes. That's like I'm telling about the shallow copy basically.
Deep copy actually we are creating a new instance every time. So whenever you're modifying any instance, it will not modify the old instances. In case of
Yes,
deep copy. But in case of shallow
yes, yes.
copy, if you are creating the instance once and another instance you are creating of that same class and you are pointing it to old instance, and through that new reference variable of the same class, if you are modifying the ID or any other parameters, the old instance field members will also be changed. So that is the shallow copy concept.
Okay, got it.
You got the clarity, right?
Yes, yes.
Yeah. So do you know what concurrent modification exception? What is it?
Okay, so like basically it is like when we like iterating over the list, okay,
Mhm.
and there is like sudden modification in the structure of the list. So Java basically automatically detect that and throw an like a concurrent modification exception because the like list is getting modified uh, unexpectedly. So that basically concurrent modification
So how
is.
can we resolve that?
So okay, so there is ways are we can resolve that.
Mhm.
One is like we can use like copy on write array list.
Okay.
So what it internally does is it will basically whenever the element get added, it will basically create a new copy of that.
Mm-hmm.
So original one does not get modified.
Okay.
And other one we can use like there is like concurrent Hashmap is there.
Mm-hmm.
So that is basically we can use to avoid these things.
Okay.
Like yes.
Okay. So, do you know about solid design principles?
Yes, yes, I know.
Can you explain a bit on that?
So basically, S is like for the stand for single responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
So that will be like every class like have single responsibilities. So
What
it will
does that
basically
mean? Yeah.
so like for suppose we have like one class that is uh, you will say like employee class, right? So employee class have some certain values like so it must have some information related to employee only. So other information like for the department one, it should be under another class.
Okay.
So it should have like single responsibility for like creating or managing the employee only.
Okay.
And another one is like open close principle.
Okay.
Okay, so for that like class should be like open for extension and close for modification. So in
Mm-hmm.
that case, like suppose for example we have a like one service suppose that is used for notify the customer.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so suppose initially we have like suppose two classes, like we suppose if we have two ways like for sending the OTPs we have for the sending notification, and we have a mail service,
Mm-hmm.
right? So in that case, like if we want to add some more ways in which we can notify the customer, so we do not have to modify the notification service here. So in that way, like we usually create the interface in one notification service, and all of the ways in which we have to send the notification like OTPs, mails, and etc. So we have it will be implementing a notification class. So that the notification class does not get modified.
Okay.
Only we are extending that feature. So
Okay.
that's the
Okay.
okay. And
Next.
one is like list of substitution principle is there. So in that base class can be like base class object, like we can interchange with the child one, so without breaking the contract. So in that way, for example, I will tell you. Okay. uh, okay, so suppose like most often example is when we have one rectangle and square class is there.
Mm-hmm.
So we know that uh, uh, like inherently you will say uh, every square is basically a rectangle. So
Mm-hmm.
main difference is that like it has only you will say sides are equal. So
Mm-hmm.
if we have like one method which we are like doing suppose to find the area. So for the uh, if you say for like rectangle we have to provide the length and breadth,
Mm-hmm.
and for the square one we have to only provide the length only. So it will basically square the length into length.
Mm-hmm.
So instead of like it will be basically not interchangeable. So instead of that, like we will create a one interface like that will be shape, and all of the like classes will be implementing that shape class. So by implementing the shape class, we will basically uh, override the method that will be used for providing the area of the structure, or the area of the you will
And
say
basically
shape.
choose the overloaded method which you want. Like there can be two overloaded method. One will accept
Right,
one parameter, one will accept two parameters.
right.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, so one is solid. So one is I stand for interface segregation. So
Mm-hmm.
for that what it should be is like every interface should have a one abstract method.
Okay.
So like that should be ideal scenario, because like we cannot like force the client to implement that methods which they are not using.
Okay.
So in such cases, it must be ideal. It should have a one abstract method. So client should have to implement that. So that will be that
No,
principle
it's
says.
not with respect to one abstract method. Like if there is like certain set of methods, so let's suppose there are 20 methods. So three methods are particular to one type, so that we can create a separate interface for that. These five methods are of one type. We can create a separate interface for that. So clients which are looking out for certain type of functionality, they will just make use of that interface which contains three methods. Okay, second client is want to make use of, let's suppose, food feature. They want to order food, so food will have three kind of functionalities, like order food. Okay, choosing the from the menu. Okay, so like the two three functionalities, so client are interested in those two three methods only, so that will be kept in a
Yes,
separate
yes,
interface. So that
yes,
is the
yes,
concept of interface segregation. You are
yes.
not
So
putting all the methods in one single interface, rather you are segregating the functionalities across multiple interfaces as per the client's requirement.
you got it. I will remember that point
Okay.
basically. So for the ideal one, I'm telling
Mhm.
but it should be
But
like
you
not.
told like one abstract method, that is not a case. That is for functional interface you are telling.
Yes, yes,
This is not a
I
case of
got it.
functional interface.
I
Yeah.
got it point. Like yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so for days like for the dependency inversion principle, so
Mm-hmm.
that will say like higher module, like higher class module should not be dependent upon the slower one.
Mm-hmm.
So it should be dependent upon the abstraction only.
Mm-hmm.
So for example, which
And
I have
vice
said.
versa is also there. Lower ones should also be not dependent upon higher version.
Yes, is right. Oh, I missed that.
Yeah.
So, like for the example, as I told previously, like we have like one notification survey that will be used to notify the customers, and all the suppose OTP is the ways like which we are sending the like notify the customers, or we are sending emails,
Mm-hmm.
or we are doing some other things also.
Mm-hmm.
So we are so here only like OTP and emails are basically lower modules,
Mm-hmm.
so that should be like not dependent upon the how which we are sending the SMS.
Mm-hmm.
So that should be basically depend upon the abstraction. So suppose like if there is another way which we want to add to
Mm-hmm.
send a notification, so we
Okay.
can basically pass only the reference of the interface only,
Mm-hmm.
and we can basically whatever like ways we want to add, so that ways we basically handle that according to our case, so we not to modify the existing one.
Basically,
So
the
that would.
classes should not be modified. It should depend upon
Yes,
the
yes, sir.
interface layer, which is the
Yes, yes, right,
abstraction
right.
layer. Yeah.
Because interface basically can handle all of the classes, so we can
Basically, we
basically
have to keep
dynamically
it
pass it.
loose coupling. That is the main point.
Right. You're right, right.
So, do you know the difference between Spring and Spring Boot?
Yes. So basically, like main difference is that Spring Boot is basically built on the top of the Spring framework.
Okay.
So it has all the features like which have in the Spring,
Mm-hmm.
and also it will basically more emphasize on the conventions over the configurations. Like for the
Okay.
Spring, we have to like configure many of the things either in the XML file and that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So Spring Boot when it comes, it will auto configure everything for you. Like
Mm-hmm.
for example, if you add this like Spring Boot started web,
Mm-hmm.
so it will basically create dispatcher servlet for you
Mm-hmm.
and manage all of the things like creating the web servers and all of the things for you, so you don't have to manually do anything. You will basically take the project and it is a standalone running. So
Yeah.
it's something like that. And also like for the dependencies part, like previously like you have to manage all of the dependencies. So suppose for the hibernate you have to add 4 or 5 dependencies,
Mm-hmm.
so you have to basically take care of the each dependency is compatible or not. But
Okay.
for the Spring Boot, it has a starter parent, so
Mm-hmm.
it will basically automatic take the dependencies according to his own compatibility.
Mm-hmm.
So you do not able to maintain the dependencies part.
Mm-hmm.
So it will basically simplify everything for you. Like that is the main advantage of Spring Boot.
And there is auto configuration feature is also there. Do you know about
Yes,
this?
yes, auto configure. Yes, yes. So it will basically scan the all the class part which you have added. So based on the dependencies you have added in the class part, it will manually auto configure everything. So that I will tell. Yes, that's the also the advantage.
Okay. So, do you know like what are beans and how can we configure them?
So for the simpler ways, like beans is like object that is basically Java object that is basically managed by the Spring container.
Mm-hmm.
So for creating the beans, so Spring will basically for the annotation based, like Spring will check basically whether it component is there.
Mm-hmm.
So during the scanning phase, it will basically detect that it is whether a component is there. So we have to create the bean of that, and it will basically register to the IOC container.
Mm-hmm.
So internally, it's working like that. And also like if you want to manage like beans more, like you will say more manually, so we can use the configuration class, and in that basically at the rate bean annotation is there, so we can basically manage our beans more according to our own way. Like in that way basically we can do that.
Okay. So let's suppose I have already configured and we have put the annotation. So where you will put the annotation at a class level or at a method level?
So at the rate configuration is we go put on the class level.
Mm-hmm. And for beans?
So it is on the method level you will put.
Okay. So we have configured all the beans. So how can we utilize that beans? Basically, you are
Yes.
configuring. That means you are not telling Spring Container to create the object for me as and when required. Okay, so you are instructing Spring Container that this bean needs to be injected in this way. So basically, you are injecting that bean. You are not telling container to inject it. So how will you inject that bean?
Okay, I got your point. Basically, one thing I want to ask, like, so suppose like I have one class that is annotated with at the rate confusion, right?
Mm-hmm.
And inside that we have created some bean definitions, right?
Yeah. Okay.
So that basically, so what is Spring will do in that case? Like it will basically check there is one configuration class is there, so it will basically goes inside that and check the bean definitions.
Mm-hmm.
So it will automatically create the bean of that and register to the IOC container. So there's a different like I missed something or that like
Yeah, that
I
is
guess
fine. It will be registered,
yes
but we need to provide a dependency like where we need to auto wire that. Okay, so you can auto wire at the method parameter level as well in the declaration level. So whatever beans you are creating with that method, okay, so that same method you can utilize it and you can put it as an auto wired in the method parameter. So let's suppose you are creating one dependency for MySQL, let's suppose the DB connection
okay
you want to do. Okay,
okay
so there you can create a separate bean, enter it bean over a method. So there you can set all the details. Like let's suppose you don't want to fetch from the properties file, you want to write a code for that. So for that there is in memory S2 database, like embedded H2 database is
yes
there.
yes right
Yeah, so that you can make use of, and you can set all username, user ID, password there itself. Okay, and you can put at the rate bean over there, and then that particular reference you can auto wire it in certain other classes or in that particular method parameter. Like wherever you want to use that data source, you can auto wire that bean.
okay got it
Okay,
uh,
so that way
yes yes
you are actually handling it manually. You are not telling Spring Container that you create and inject a object as and when you want. But I am instructing Spring Container that you have to configure the bin this way and you have to inject it this way, which I have configured. Okay, so you will have
okay
more control over that bin like this.
okay. Got it. So, like, suppose if I manually write, suppose one class has a dependency on another. So, for the general way, if we write auto at the rate auto byte, so like, what is the difference between these two?
So directly if you are writing at auto y, you are not configuring bean. So it will Spring Container will inject the dependency as and when it is required. So it will give the default dependency. So the configuration, let's suppose for separate set of beans, you want to add certain set of configurations. Let's suppose there is project requirement and it doesn't want the default configuration which Spring Container is providing. That project requirement is like we need to modify that configuration for that bean, and we have to change a certain field values or certain parameters, and then we have to inject that any kind of configuration change. Let's suppose it is the requirement, so then it will not be possible because Spring Container will provide a default configuration for injection purpose.
Okay,
You're
got
getting
it.
it right. So for auto wiring it, you can
Yes, yes.
directly auto wire that class. That is also fine. But if you want to have more control over that bean by providing certain set of configuration, you can add it. So it's not always the case. Whenever it's required, you can do that. So you should be knowing that there are two ways to do, directly or through bean creation.
Okay,
Got it right?
I will remember this point. Yes, yes.
Yeah. So okay. So do you know about stereotype annotations? What are stereotype annotations?
Yes, yes. So, like, stereotype annotations is like at the rate service is there or
Mm-hmm.
at the rate controller and at the rate repository. So that will be like coming under the stereotype annotation. So stereotype is like more, you will say most broader one or generic one for that all of these annotations is
Okay.
something like that. Or you will say like it is it basically all the annotations basically it's come inside that.
Mm-hmm. So these are basically aliases of one of the main component.
Yes, yes.
Okay. So all are part of added component only. All is coming under that.
Yes, yes. Yes, yes, right.
So can we interchange and reuse it? Like added controller, can I change with added repository and make use of it? Will it work? All are component only basically, no? That is the meaning of stereotype.
Yes. I
So
think like we can change it also.
so if I'm replacing added controller with added service, will it work?
Other controller with other is service. I think it should work.
No, for controller part it will not work. Why I'm telling, because whenever you are hitting the endpoint, from Postman or directly you are hitting it from UI. So what will happen? It will try to look out for the method. So there will be like a front end controller will be there. That is dispatcher servlet. So it will try to look out for the endpoint with a particular mapping. Okay, so within that REST controller, it will go and try to find out that particular mapping. So that configuration is done in such a way that it will look out for the class which has attached controller annotation on top of it. So if you are not putting attached controller annotation, it will not be identified as a controller layer. So it will not be able to identify that mapping, the method mapping. There can be multiple mappings, right? Post mapping, get mapping, put mapping. So it will try to map the call which is being done from UI part. So if it is not of controller type, it will not be identifying the class as an entry point of that application.
Okay, got it.
So controller can't be replaced with any other annotation, but service can be replaced with controller or repository. Repository can be replaced with controller and service, but in certain scenarios, repository should also be not replaced, because let's suppose there is update operation is happening. So if there is exception happening in certain scenario, like database in data is not able to save in database, or it's not able to update, some exception came, like unique constraint violation, like you are trying to enter the data which is already present. So there is an exception, right? So if
Okay,
you are not writing at the repository, then what will happen over there? If exception is being thrown, then it will not be able to handle that, because that exception handling mechanism at the DAO layer is that capacity is there with the repository only, at the repository. So each and every annotation has its own set of functionalities. But that
okay.
is not the
So
case
base.
with service. Service can be replaced with any of the annotations, but there is limitation for controller. Controller, you can never change that. Okay, it will, you can change, it will not throw compile time error. It will not throw error during server startup also. But when you will try to hit the endpoint, then you will see that it will not hit the endpoint.
Okay, got it.
And you will experiment, you will get to know that. Okay.
Okay, okay.
But
Yes, yes.
service can, you can replace it, there is no issue. And repository, if there is no updation happening, then you can replace repository with controller or service, both work fine. So
Okay,
these things are very crucial. Okay.
okay.
Okay. So in Spring Boot, how have you secured your application?
So like right now, like we are using token-based authentication for that.
It's
So
JWT.
yes, it's something like JWT, but we are not using the method that we're providing by that. So we have like customized that according to our own will. So like so when the user login, suppose user like enter the passcode,
Mm-hmm.
so we basically generate one you will say one token. So
Mm-hmm.
that will be set JWT and that will be stored in the Redis. So
Okay.
for every subsequent API call, we basically with the some expiry time we are storing that token.
Mm-hmm.
So for every subsequent API call, we are checking that the token is present in the Redis or not. So
Okay.
if it is like getting expired, so we will basically throw an error like you have to log in again.
Mm-hmm.
So we are using something like that right now, sir, because like JWT have their own like methods to like check the tokens, but we are not using that. So we have like our Redis so for storing the that token.
Okay. And for caching purpose, how you are making use of Redis caching?
So, like we are using like we have like integrated Redis in our like for the in our Spring Boot application.
Mm-hmm.
So, like for example, like I will say one use case. So, suppose like user enter like three or like more than three times wrong passcode,
Mm-hmm.
right? So we basically block the user for 24 hours. So instead of like maintaining that record in the customer table or that table, so we are basically that mobile number we are basically stored in the Redis only for the 24-hour expiry time.
Mm-hmm.
So we can basically check that in the Redis only. So we have to do not call the uh, database every time.
Mm-hmm.
And also in the when we are basically calling the UPI APIs, so
Mm-hmm.
we are basically we are using like usually pumpkin model in that like
Mm-hmm.
PubSub model.
Pub
So we
sub
are
model, yeah.
yes PubSub model in that
Mm-hmm.
like for the asynchronous processing. So we are basically publish that transaction ID in a Redis. So when the response coming in the callback APIs, so that basically it will basically automatically system will automatically take it that from the you will say uh, firstly basically will publish in the Redis.
Mm-hmm.
So initially we are subscribing, so it will automatically take the transaction ID and we can basically process it our response. So because like we have a different web servers, so response can come to any of the servers. So instead of like uh, managing that, we are basically subscribing the Redis. So for that, basically, it will be automatically faster than any other method. So currently, we are doing that.
Okay. So how are you authenticating the roles? Like these accesses should be given only to admin, and these all data will be given to user. So how that role based authentication you are doing?
So right now, like we are not using that thing right now.
So anybody can have access to any application, right? Any part of the application. There
All
is no
right.
certain discrimination like admin and user kind of thing or any role
No,
kind of
no.
thing. It's not there.
Role-based authentication is right not there in our application right now.
Okay.
But there is like some certain endpoints like which we are not allowed.
Hmm.
So that we basically in the Nginx on that layer we are blocking that. So in the network layer we are not allowing that. So that is basically in the our code level we are not blocking anything.
Okay. So how are you making microservice fault tolerant?
So like one thing is that like our project is structure is like we are using something like SOA model. So
Mm-hmm.
in that like each services does not like communicate with each other.
Mm-hmm.
So we are not like having that sort of microservice at the right now. Like so there is no like
Let's
fault
suppose
tolerance.
you have multiple microservice calls happening, like A calling B, B calling C, and C microservice has some issue. It's not returning any data. So what will you do in that scenario? Is this kind of scenarios not happening?
No, basically, microservices does not call any other microservices. So there is like utility services are there.
Mm-hmm.
So it will basically automatically using that. Every service is using that only. So we are not like every microservice does not calling another service in that
So
way.
inter-service communication is not happening in your case.
No, no, no.
Okay, okay, okay. Okay. So do you know about design patterns in microservice? Like what is Saga design pattern?
Yes, I have heard about that, but like not, I'm not read about that. So it basically for the transactional management, like we are using Saga pattern.
Mm-hmm.
So suppose like if there is any like any exception occur in the one of the particular like updation of the data,
Mm-hmm.
so it will basically for the previous all of the data it will automatically roll back that. So it will basically maintain the like you will say atomicity of the entire transaction. So it's something like that. Like I'm not sure. I'm not read about much.
Yeah, you are partially correct. So any instance there is a success or failure event, it will return. So at any point there is event failure is being returned, so it will roll back all the past success events.
So it will basically event it will basically propagate, right?
Yeah, it will go inverse way. So let's
Okay,
suppose payment a person has done the payment, but it has not reached the end user, or the client has not reached that get that payment. So the order should not be given, right? So each and everything which happened before should get rolled back.
right,
So that's why in that way only the customer will get their money refund back, right? Or else their money got deducted but they are not getting the food. So this is the inconsistent behavior, right? If person has paid, then they can get the food. If person's
right.
money is deducted from the bank account and it has not been credited to Zomato's account, then how can Zomato give the food to that person? So it's like a consistency should be there across the entire system. That is the thing. So for
Okay,
that is event-driven architecture is there. A success event, failure event, it will go side by side. So at any instance, let's suppose payment got failed from customer side or from the client side, there is some server issue, then entire thing will get rolled back. Transactions should get rolled back and the money should get refunded to the customer's bank account. So like that, the entire process should go.
okay. So like there is a one annotation like at the rate transaction.
Yes,
So
yes,
it is
yes.
using for that purpose or like it's for different.
Yeah, that is for that purpose only. It can be applied at method level or at class level. So totally depends. Like you want to do transaction at the method level only, like other methods are not, it's not be used. So there can be a chance like one method internally another method is called, and that method internally another method is called. So you can put it at a method level. But if all methods are independent, you can put it at a class level. So it totally depends like how is the architecture and how you are implementing the functionalities. Okay.
Okay, okay. Got it.
So how that build and deployment process is happening in your projects?
So basically, for that purpose, we are using Jenkins for that,
Okay.
for building and deployment to the remote servers. So what we are currently using is like one deployment strategy like green blues there. So we basically when we go to deployment, we are basically using we basically deployed into the one server using Jenkins.
Okay.
So basically Jenkins basically like build and verify all of the test cases what we are written or what we have added, and according to that if everything is done, so it will basically when we are it will basically in the GitHub we are integrated that Jenkins, so
Mm-hmm.
it will automatically take the code from the GitHub.
So you have written
So
the
that
script part, Jenkins
uh,
script file.
no pipeline I'm not right now. So
Okay. Okay.
that's the DevOps work. Basically they have about the pipelines which basically used to take the code from the GitHub and deploy to the remote servers. So
Mm-hmm.
that's written by different persons. So that's we are basically right now doing. So we basically deploy to the one server only and we monitor it for 24 hours,
So
and if
where are you
everything is good.
deploying your application?
So like we are basically what we are using is currently is we basically create a jar of the like creating the jar and deploy to the remote service, and we basically run that jar that we are deploying, so we are currently using that.
You're not deploying in a specific region like AWS or cloud or any other place.
No, like we have like our own servers, so we are not using any services.
Okay. Okay. Great. So in future it will not come, or will it be like that only?
Basically maybe it will come like maybe we are using future we are using Kubernetes or Docker for that,
Mm-hmm.
but for the external services like Amazon AWS we are not, maybe we are not using, because like we have like our server manual servers is there.
Mm-hmm.
So and also like they are capable of doing more of the things.
Mm-hmm.
So for the infra part like we're like strong, so I think don't think that we are using any services in the future.
Okay. Okay. Great. Okay. Yeah, it's fine. So I'm done from my side. Is there any question?
So like can you just tell me like in the which scenario like I can improve, because like I am already serving the notice period, so it's about like 1 month left only.
Mm-hmm.
So I have like one or two offers in the pipeline,
Which offers you
but
having?
so like one is the UKG, I have the offer UKG, so that's a Noida based.
Mm-hmm.
You heard about that?
Okay.
So they are offering around like 17 they are offering right now.
How many years of experience you are having?
I have like 2.5 years.
Okay. Okay. Great.
So and another company basically that's the MTAP technologies that basically that's providing around 13, but they are giving remote. So I'm like little confused because also like I have 1 month left, so I'm trying like how much I can improve. So for the I think like coding part I can much like good, but for if a person goes in the depth, so that where I can lack.
Yeah, you have to
So that's a
practice it. The coding part, you need to practice it. That
yes
singleton
yes
class you are implementing, no, you are making little bit
yes yes.
problems. Yeah, so you have to
So
practice it.
yes, yes. So basically, in the, if I using the ID and that sort of thing, so I will basically more comfortable. So I will basically it will give the some
No, no, no.
preference
Don't
also.
do it there because every
Okay.
interviewer has different set of expectations. So some
Yes,
will tell
yes.
that you can do in ID. Some will tell that you have to implement in online compiler. Some will tell to put in Notepad or Notepad plus plus. It differs from interviewer to interviewer. So you have to basically start practicing from Notepad first before actually implementing in IDE. Try to put it in Notepad because it has some inbuilt methods, right? In IDE, it will automatically suggest you to call this method. So if you don't
Yes, yes.
remember at that point of time when the interviewer is telling you to put it in Notepad plus plus, then it will create problems. So if you give
Right, right.
Google interviews, Google is happening only in Notepad, in Google Doc. So if
Yes,
you don't
yes.
know about the methods, you will not be able to write only. You will make a lot of problems, lot of mistakes you
Yes,
will
yes.
make over there. So try to
Yes,
practice
yes.
on Notepad first. If you are comfortable here,
Yes.
after writing here, then it will be very easy to put in ID. If you are comfortable here.
Yes, yes. So basically, I have like given interviews, like even I've given Oracle interviews,
Hmm.
but like that is like for the 2 years, that DSA is like very much like more to me. So
Uh-huh.
even if I like clear one round and second round, they are passing BFA, BFS, and that sort of things. So
Okay. Okay.
that will be like blow my mind at that time.
Uh-huh.
So,
You are
so
going
I'm
for
right now.
Oracle India, right?
Yes, yes.
Yeah. So they will.
So
So
that
what
would
type
be
of
like
question they had asked you?
so. In the first round that I have cleared, so one question is like for the spiral matrix, so
Hmm.
that will be asked, and
Yeah.
one is like related to binary search. So we have to find the like minimum element. Uh, in the rotated sorted array. So that will be
That is
like
a
also the
modified
medium
binary
level.
search. Yeah.
Yes, yes. So that will be like, so in that case like अगर आपने like किया होता है वो क्वेश्चन then you can only do that.
Yes, yes, correct.
अगर नहीं किया होता तो फिर वैसा ही है कि मतलब लग गया तो लग गया टाइप,
हाँ,
मतलब अगर समझ
वो
गया उस टाइम
दिमाग
पे
में
तो हो
नहीं
गया,
आएगा उस वक्त अगर प्रैक्टिस
नहीं
नहीं किया
आएगा।
रहेगा तो। हाँ।
और उसने मतलब पहला ही दूसरे राउंड में पहला ही क्वेश्चन लाइक अराउंड मतलब मे बी मैंने बाद में चेक किया तो इज समथिंग लाइक द मॉडिफिकेशन ऑफ द डीएफएस टाइप।
हम्म।
सो उसमें ही मतलब जीपीटी से मैंने पूछा ना, वो भी कम से कम एक एक डेढ़ पेज का उसने भी एक्सप्लेनेशन दिया, समझ समझ ही नहीं आया। और
हम्म।
उसके चक्कर में दूसरा वाला मे बी शायद वो इजी था,
हम्म।
लेकिन वो पहला नहीं हुआ ना तो दूसरा वाले में मतलब
वो
उसी तरफ से
कॉन्फिडेंस
माइंड हो
नहीं
गया,
रहता है। हाँ।
वो नहीं रहता, वो वही बात है।
तो
सो
सेकंड राउंड
अभी
में दोनों क्वेश्चन क्या बीएफएस डीएफएस का ही पूछा था?
एक कोई मतलब मैथ का था, रैंक निकालने का कुछ था, लेकिन उसमें मतलब मैंने बाद में चेक किया तो कुछ एजम्पशन करने थे, मतलब
हम्म।
लाइक उतना क्लियर नहीं था क्वेश्चन
अच्छा,
मतलब।
अच्छा, अच्छा।
हाँ तो मे बी ये एक्सपेक्ट कर रहा होगा कि वो कुछ पूछेगा करके, देन
हम्म।
मैं उसको बताऊंगा कुछ।
हम्म।
मुझे तो मैं क्या ही पूछूंगा समझ ही नहीं आया मुझे बहुत चीजें तो।
हाँ, उसमें दिमाग में नहीं आएगा तो पता ही नहीं पाओगे, मतलब क्वेश्चंस भी तो पूछने के लिए पता होना चाहिए क्या क्वेश्चन पूछे हैं। वो
हम्म।
इम्पोर्टेंट है।
अब कोडिंग में ऐसा है ना कि मतलब अभी तो एक महीना बचा हुआ है।
हम्म।
सो मतलब अभी मैं ऐसे अगर मैं पढ़ने सपोज जाता भी हूँ ना, मतलब तो भी मुझे लगता नहीं है कि 80-90% कंपनी नहीं जाती है वहां तक।
हम्म।
सो अभी तक मैंने लिंक लिस्ट तक तो करा हुआ है कि वहां तक आ जाएगा ना, तो मतलब नहीं होगा तो ब्रूट फोर्स से कर ही लेंगे कैसे तैसे करके
हाँ,
सोच मतलब करके।
हाँ,
लेकिन उसके बाद का अभी मेरे पास टाइम है नहीं कि मैं करूँ बैठ के। हालांकि अभी है यूकेजी का मेरे पास ऑफर है, लेकिन उसमें मतलब ऐसा है ना कि उसने मतलब ले ऑफ्स बहुत करे हैं।
हाँ।
सो मतलब क्योंकि अभी वो मुझे ना स्टार्टिंग अराउंड मतलब वो स्टार्टिंग में मुझे वही पैकेज मिला था मतलब।
हम्म।
अभी मैंने जितने इंटरव्यूज दिए ना वो मैच नहीं कर पाए, क्योंकि अभी मैं स्टार्टिंग मतलब पैकेज जो अभी मेरा है वो अराउंड 7 का है।
7 से
सो सेवन
17? अच्छा, अच्छा।
7 से 17,
हम्म।
और अभी तक मैं उसको मैच ढूंढ रहा हूँ कि कोई ना कोई तो मैच कर देगा उसको, लेकिन वो मैच नहीं हो रहा है अभी
वो
तक।
काफी
सो
डिफरेंस आ
अभी
गया ना, मतलब मोर देन 100% हाइक है तो
हाँ
उसके लिए
मतलब उसके
मैच
लिए वही
करेगा
है
तो
ना।
देते रहना पड़ेगा इंटरव्यूज।
हाँ
तो
मतलब फिर वही हो गया कि कोई अच्छी एमएनसी या पीबीसी मिलती है तो वही मैच करेगी मतलब। सो
प्रोडक्ट
वही
बेस्ड
मैं
कंपनी
थोड़ा
मैच
देख।
कर देगी, मतलब नॉर्मल सर्विस
हाँ
बेस्ड
वही
में
करेगी।
इस एक्सपीरियंस में थोड़ा
हाँ
डिफिकल्ट रहता
नहीं करेगी कोई भी नहीं, मतलब मुश्किल है कोई करे।
है। 4 साल एक्सपीरियंस
सो
होता तो मतलब मैच कर देती, 2 साल 2.5 साल में
हाँ
मतलब बहुत ज्यादा है
बहुत
एज
सारा।
कम्पेयर टू नॉर्मल प्रोडक्ट बेस्ड कंपनीज के हिसाब से। तो प्रोडक्ट बेस्ड कंपनीज
हम्म,
मैच कर देगी, तो उसके लिए उसका कॉल भी आना चाहिए पहले।
हाँ उसका आपकी कॉल भी आना चाहिए और इतना मतलब प्रिपेयर भी होना चाहिए।
हाँ, हाँ,
कौन मतलब, और थोड़ा तो वो भी रहता है, किस्मत की तो होती है बात, वो तो मैंने देखा है
हाँ, हाँ,
कि
हाँ,
पढ़ तो कितना भी लो ना, अभी कोई कोई नया क्वेश्चन लेके आ जाएगा ना तो नहीं समझ में आएगा, इवन आपने कितना भी पढ़ लिया हो।
हाँ,
देयर
वो
इज
तो
नो
रहता है।
एंडिंग।
हाँ, करेक्ट, करेक्ट।
हाँ
हर
सो
एक क्वेश्चन
वही
का
है
एक
तो।
डिफरेंट वेरिएशंस होता है, मतलब जितना प्रैक्टिस
हाँ
करेंगे वो माइंड को ट्रेन करना पड़ता है उस डायरेक्शन में।
नहीं करना पड़ेगा अभी
हाँ।
तो, मतलब मैंने काफी मतलब प्रैक्टिस करी है हर चीज की मतलब।
हम्म।
लेकिन मतलब वही है ना कि अगर मैं फंस जाता हूँ ना तो मैं खुद सी मिस्टेक भी कर ही देता हूँ।
हाँ, हाँ, हाँ। मतलब उसमें सोचते
वही
रहना
है ना।
पड़ेगा, मतलब अगर आधा घंटा 40 मिनट ट्राई करो,
हाँ।
होता है तो ठीक है, वरना फिर सॉल्यूशन देखकर करने का ट्राई करो, क्योंकि फंसे रहने से कोई मतलब
हम्म।
नहीं है, फिर वो टाइम चला जाएगा।
वही है, मैंने आपकी वीडियोस बहुत देखी मतलब काफ़ी, मतलब मैंने सीखा है काफ़ी ज़्यादा।
हम्म।
सो लाइक मोस्टली चीज़ें ना मैंने इंटरव्यूज देख के ही सीखी हैं कि मतलब खुद गलती करो, इससे अच्छा है कि लोगों को देख लो
हम्म।
कि कैसे कर रहे हैं क्या पूछ रहे हैं, तो वैसे वैसे तैयार रहो,
कौन से
क्योंकि
वीडियो
काम
से
का अलग।
रजिस्टर किए थे टॉपमेट के लिए?
कौन सी वीडियो से मैंने, एक सेकेंड, मैंने कौन सी वीडियो देखी थी। ओके, मैं शायद आपकी ना दूसरी वाली वीडियो देखी ना, जो इंटरव्यू वाली ना, उसकी दूसरी वीडियो है, मैंने वहां से लिंक क्लिक किया। हालांकि देखा तो मैंने बहुत सारी है, 4-5
हम्म।
जो जो मुझे लगा मतलब रेलेवेंट है, 2-3-4 4 साल का लगभग, तो मैंने उतना देखा है।
हम्म।
सो मतलब मुझे मोस्टली अच्छा मतलब देखने में लगा,
वो
और
तीस
थोड़ा मतलब
पैंतीस
देखता
इंटरव्यू
रहा।
का सीरीज है, अगर वो कर लिए तो मतलब पूरा मोस्टली कवर हो जाएगा, 80% मैच कर जाएगा उसमें से।
हाँ 80% मैंने भी देखा है, मतलब यही
हम्म।
सब जो मतलब आपसे पूछ रहे हैं ना वही मुझसे ही पूछ रहे हैं मोस्टली।
हाँ,
और
मैंने प्योर डेटा स्ट्रक्चर की तरफ अभी गया नहीं हूँ, मतलब प्योर डेटा स्ट्रक्चर में जाओगे तो उसमें भी कई तरह के क्वेश्चंस होते हैं, तो उसमें फिर बाकी क्वेश्चंस को मैं कवर नहीं कर पाऊंगा, तो
हाँ
इसलिए मैं,
मतलब अभी
हाँ, क्योंकि उसमें तुमको
डेटा
अलग से
स्ट्रक्चर का
प्रैक्टिस
तो
चाहिए।
मतलब फिर वही हो गया, डेटा स्ट्रक्चर तो मतलब ऐसा ही हो गया कि जितना करो उतना मतलब, इवन एरे के आप 700-800 क्वेश्चन मिल जाएंगे, कौन करता है इतना।
हाँ, 1000-1500 क्वेश्चन है लीड कोड में, तो
हाँ
सारा तो
लीड
नहीं हो
कोड।
पाएगा, लेकिन तुमको वेरिएशंस पर देखना है, मतलब 4 एल्गोरिथम है,
हाँ
उसके ऊपर तुम 10-10 क्वेश्चन कर लो, 40 क्वेश्चन कर लो, हो जाएगा। दैट इज
हाँ
फाइन।
मैंने भी अराउंड मतलब अराउंड लिंक लिस्ट तक अराउंड 200 तो मैंने भी करे हुए लीड कोड पे,
हम्म।
लेकिन उससे आगे नहीं, मैं नहीं बढ़ पाया।
उसके आगे रिकर्सन, बैक ट्रैकिंग, डीपी, वो सब थोड़ा सा रहता है। इजी टू मीडियम
उसके लिए
लेवल।
भी थोड़ा मतलब टाइम भी चाहिए कि थोड़ा माइंड क्लियर हो, फिर आराम से कंपनी भी टाइम दे थोड़ा सा, तो
हाँ,
फिर करो
कंपनी में
आराम से।
काम करते हुए ये प्रिपरेशन करना थोड़ा सा डिफिकल्ट हो जाता है।
मुश्किल है। हालाँकि अभी तो नोटिस पीरियड पे हो तो मतलब इतना कोई ध्यान नहीं देता है वैसे, मतलब
हम्म।
कि इतना टेंशन नहीं होती कि चलो देख लेता, थोड़ा बहुत क्रिएटिविटी देनी रहती है। तो अभी मुझे लग रहा है कि हालाँकि यूकेजी ने मुझसे बोला है कि आप अगर रिलीज़ ले सकते हो तो ले लो, मतलब जॉइन करना चाहते हो तो।
हम्म।
लेकिन मैंने फिर वही बोला कि अभी जब 3 महीने तक आप रुक ही रहे हो तो मतलब मैं ट्राई करता हूँ फिर।
हम्म।
क्योंकि यही टाइम है ना, मतलब पढ़ने का टाइम यही है। फिर एक
हाँ,
बार जॉइन कर लूँगा ना तो
उसके
फिर
बाद फिर नहीं पढ़
एक
पाओगे। हाँ।
1 साल तो लॉक हो गया फिर वहाँ पे।
अभी
फिर
टाइम है,
इस वज़ह
जल्दी
से
जल्दी पढ़ कर कोई अच्छा कंपनी निकाल लो, यही
हाँ,
बेस्ट
मैं
टाइम है।
ट्राई कर रहा हूँ वही। तभी मैं सोच रहा हूँ मतलब अलग-अलग रिसोर्सेज़ मैं देख रहा हूँ। मैंने इंटरव्यूज़ भी दे रहा हूँ कि कुछ ना कुछ सीखने को मिलेगा तो
हम्म।
भई ये थोड़ा काम आएगा।
हाँ, हो जाएगा, टेंशन मतलब, बस प्रैक्टिस करते रहो क्वेश्चंस हर एक
हाँ।
एल्गोरिथम के ऊपर।
हुँ।
ठीक है, चलो ऑल द बेस्ट।
ओके, थैंक
बहुत
यू
अच्छा
सर। मैं
पैकेज
करता हूँ
ऑलरेडी हो
आपको।
गया है।
हाँ, मतलब वही एक्सपेक्टेशन मुझे भी नहीं थी मतलब, लेकिन वही है कि मतलब
क्या तुम उतना
जब थोड़ा
मांगे थे कि मतलब सामने से ही ऑफर किया था तुमने?
मतलब वैसा था ना कि मैंने माँगा तो सही बताऊँ 13 था उनसे,
अच्छा।
लेकिन उन्होंने ऐसा बोला कि जिस रोल के लिए मतलब वहाँ पे रोल में सीनियर एसोसिएट है, सीनियर
अ-
सॉफ्टवेयर इंजीनियर।
अच्छा।
तो वो ऐसा बोले कि मतलब उसके 4-5 राउंड हुए थे, मतलब काफ़ी लंबा प्रोसीजर था।
हम्म।
तो मतलब उन्होंने ऐसा बोला एचआर ने कि जिस आप मतलब रोल पे आ रहे हो, तो उसका हमारा स्टार्टिंग पैकेज ही 16 है। तो
अच्छा।
16 से हम आपको कम नहीं देंगे। तो मैंने कहा भाई ऐसे एचआर कहाँ मिलते हैं? और
वही तो।
3 महीने रुक नहीं रहे यार। तो मैंने कहा यार क्या ही बोलूँ भाई मैं मतलब
तो 17 बोल
पहली
दिया।
कंपनी मुझे हाँ, मतलब मैंने उन्हें बोला कि हालाँकि 16 फिक्स था मतलब, लेकिन
हम्म।
उसमें से 1.5 वेरिएबल उन्होंने करके रखा है 1.25। मतलब पहली बार मैंने किसी एचआर से सुना कि मतलब वो 3 महीने रुकने को तैयार है करके। आई एम नेवर अभी मैंने 2 महीने और निकाल लिए लगभग, लेकिन किसी एचआर ने बोला मुझे अब इमीडिएट चाहिए, कल आप जॉइन कर लोगे
मतलब
1 हफ्ते में,
ये
15 दिन में जॉइन
कॉम्बिनेशन
कर लो।
पाना बहुत मुश्किल है कि मतलब 3 महीना रुके भी और अच्छा भी पैकेज दे, ऐसा कॉम्बिनेशन बहुत
हाँ,
मुश्किल
वो
से
तो है।
मिलता है।
अब मतलब वो भी मुझे लग रहा है ना, वो भी ऐसा सोच रहे हैं ना कि कंपनीज़ ना अगर इतना पैकेज दे देती हैं, तो
हम्म।
उनको भी लगता है कि 17 का अगर बहुत ही अच्छी किस्मत होगी तभी कोई बा मैच करेगा उसको।
हाँ, उसको भी पता
सो
है
वो
कि
इस
इतने
वजह
कम एक्सपीरियंस पे इतना
हाँ,
ज़्यादा नहीं देगा कोई सर्विस
नहीं
बेसिस
देगा
पे।
कोई, तो भाई फिर
हाँ।
हम दे देते हैं, बंदा 90% केस में जॉइन ही कर लेता है फिर।
हम्म।
दे आर आल्सो माइंडफुल।
हाँ, उनको ही
तो
पता
वही
होता
है
है
ना।
कितना दे पाएगा, कितना कौन दे पाएगा। वो तो प्रोडक्ट
हाँ,
बेस है
सो
ना कि
वही।
सर्विस बेस है जो अभी यहाँ पे हुआ।
मतलब वैसा मैंने मैनेजर से मतलब अगर इंटरेक्शन हुआ है तो इनका मतलब मोस्टली प्रोडक्ट ही है, एससीएम बेस्ड ये लोग प्रोडक्ट बनाते हैं अपने।
हाँ हाँ हाँ।
सो इनके मतलब एमएनसीज हो गए इनके, मतलब फॉरेन में क्लाइंट्स है बहुत सारे।
हम्म।
लेकिन वही है ना, अभी इनका थोड़ा स्टेबल उस हिसाब से है नहीं, मतलब इनकी काफ़ी कुछ हुआ है इनके साथ, मतलब ले ऑफ्स और ये सब।
हम्म।
सो वो चीज़ें मुझे थोड़ा सा डाउट लग रहा है उस पर। तो अगर वो ना होता मतलब मुझे सब कुछ सॉर्टेड होता तो मैं इतनी अभी ट्राई नहीं कर रहा होता इतना कुछ, है ना, ज्वाइन नहीं कर लेता। लेकिन फिर भी मुझे लग रहा है कि देखता हूँ, मतलब अभी 1 महीना अराउंड, मेरा 13 दिसंबर को लास्ट वर्किंग डे है।
अच्छा अच्छा।
सो
अभी
इतना भी
टाइम है,
टाइम है
काफ़ी टाइम है अभी।
ना, तो अभी मैं अगर होगा कुछ लक वक बनता है तो मे बी कुछ मतलब मिल जाए तो। हालाँकि मैं अभी ऐसा है ना कि कंपनीज़ आती है, मैं उतना बताता नहीं हूँ 16-17 मेरे पास है पैकेज। अब मैं बता दूँगा तो वो
भर
काउंट ही
जाएगी
नहीं
फिर।
करेंगे।
हाँ।
1-2 कंपनीज़ तो ऐसी हुआ मतलब कि उन्होंने मैंने बोला कि मेरे पास एक 16 का है, खत्म, मतलब उसके बाद से वो पूछा ही नहीं।
अच्छा है,
सो
मैक्सिमम कंपनी ऐसे रिजेक्ट हो जाएंगी फिर।
हाँ, वैसे ये तो मतलब अभी ट्राई करता हूँ, मतलब अगर कर ही रहा हूँ बस।
करते रहो, प्रोडक्ट बेस्ड कंपनी ही देगी, मतलब इतना ज़्यादा कोई सर्विस बेस्ड तो नहीं देगा अभी इतने कम एक्सपीरियंस में।
हाँ,
क्या
मतलब
इसमें क्या डेटा स्ट्रक्चर वगैरह नहीं पूछा था क्या 4-5 राउंड में?
ऐसा था ना, मतलब पहला राउंड हुआ था, मतलब उसमें उसने पूछा था मतलब
हम्म।
कि आप मतलब ईज़ी था, स्ट्रिंग का ही था, जैसे कि एक सपोज़ स्ट्रिंग दी गई है ए, बी, बी करके,
हम्म।
तो ए टू बी टू सी थ्री कर दो, ऐसे करके मतलब उसने पूछा था पहले
अच्छा
राउंड
अच्छा,
में।
हाँ, जितना बार रिपीट हो रहा है कंटिन्यूअस उसका
हाँ,
नंबर
और
प्रिंट
भी
करना है। अच्छा
हाँ,
अच्छा।
हाँ।
हाँ।
और एक क्वेश्चन तो उसने मतलब फाइंड द फर्स्ट यूनिक कैरेक्टर ऐसे करके पूछा था।
फर्स्ट
सो
यूनिक
ऐसे
कैरेक्टर,
करके
हाँ, तो स्ट्रीम से
हाँ।
हो जाएगा। ठीक है। हाँ।
हाँ, मतलब मैंने नॉर्मल से फॉर लूप से कर दिया था मैप में स्टोर करके।
अच्छा
और
अच्छा।
दूसरे राउंड में उसने मतलब दूसरा राउंड, पहला राउंड मेरा बहुत अच्छा गया था, सही में
हम्म।
बहुत बहुत ही अच्छा गया मेरा राउंड।
हम्म।
दूसरा राउंड में मतलब ऐसा था कि उसने पहला तो पूछा ट्रीज़ का क्वेश्चन पूछा, मतलब हाइट ऑफ द बैंडिट निकालना था।
अच्छा।
तो तो मैंने उसे ऐसे बोला कि मतलब मैंने ये सब किया तो नहीं हुआ है पहले से, लेकिन अगर आपके प्रोजेक्ट में यूज़ होगा तो मैं कर लूँगा इसको, अगर आपके प्रोजेक्ट में यूज़ होगा। तो उसने कहा
हम्म।
ठीक है छोड़ो, बट इट्स विल बी इम्पोर्टेंट। फिर उसने मतलब जॉइन की क्वेरी लिखवाई एक,
हम्म।
और जावा के मतलब क्वेश्चन पूछे बेसिक बेसिक,
हम्म।
मतलब जो लाइक मल्टी थ्रेडिंग हो गया, ये क्या होता है, कॉन्करेंसी हो गई, थोड़ा बहुत
हम्म।
पूछा उसने।
हम्म।
बिल्कुल बेसिक क्वेश्चन थे, मतलब अराउंड 8-10 पूछे।
अच्छा।
तो मुझे लगा कि मतलब अराउंड मैंने 90% जवाब दे दिए थे उसके, तो मुझे लगा कि अभी उसका ट्री का क्वेश्चन नहीं हुआ होगा तो नहीं होगा,
हम्म।
लेकिन फिर भी उसने कंसिडर कर लिया।
अच्छा अच्छा।
फिर तीसरा राउंड मतलब उसका मैनेजर राउंड था, मैनेजर राउंड था। तो
हम्म।
मैनेजर राउंड में मतलब ऐसा था कि उसने मतलब प्रोजेक्ट का आर्किटेक्चर पूछा कि बना के दिखाओ। तो
अच्छा
मैंने पहले से मतलब प्रैक्टिस करी हुई थी, मतलब तो मैं फिग्मा बना के दिया उसका, फिग्मा बिल्कुल 3D में, कि
अच्छा।
ऐसा ऐसा करके सर्विसेज है, ये इंटरेक्ट कर रही है।
अच्छा।
थोड़ा मतलब मैसअप भी हो गया, वो लेडीज थी थोड़ी मतलब।
हम्म।
तो मैंने थोड़ा बना के दिया, ये एपीआई गेटवे और ये सब है।
हम्म।
उसने कहा ठीक है चलो ओके। फिर उसने पूछा कि थोड़ा बहुत मतलब उसने बेसिक बेसिक चीज़ें पूछी
अच्छा।
कि मतलब हैश मैप और ये सब क्या होता है, मतलब
हम्म।
अराउंड 15-20 में चला।
अच्छा।
फिर लास्ट राउंड में वही मतलब एवरेज गया मेरा, वो भी एवरेज ही था।
हम्म।
लेकिन लास्ट लास्ट राउंड था, मतलब जो मेरा सन लास्ट राउंड था वो मेरा
हम्म।
सबसे अच्छा गया, वो
अच्छा।
राउंड लास्ट वाला।
क्या
तो
था
उसमें
लास्ट
है,
में?
लास्ट राउंड भी मैनेजर राउंड ही था, मतलब जो मुझे
अच्छा।
हायर अभी जिसके अंदर मैं रिपोर्ट करूंगा।
हाँ हाँ।
तो उसने मुझे हैश मैप का इंटरनल इम्प्लीमेंटेशन पूछा और कुछ क्वेश्चन पूछे हैश मैप के, मतलब थोड़े से डेप्थ थे।
अच्छा
लेकिन
अच्छा।
वो किस्मत थी ना, वो मैंने करे हुए थे पहले से।
अच्छा अच्छा।
तो मैंने मतलब वो चीज़ ना बहुत सही से बताई, वो सब चीज़ें 3-4 क्वेश्चन। फिर उसने बोला कि लॉगिंग कैसे करते हो अपने एप्लीकेशंस में, ये सब पूछा।
अच्छा।
और सपोज एक्सेप्शंस आएंगे तो उसको कैसे मतलब देखोगे,
हम्म।
मैंने बोला ट्रेसेस मतलब होते हैं सबके, तो वैसे हिसाब से देख लेते हैं अपन।
हम्म।
और सबका क्लास मतलब लिखता रहता है कहाँ पे एक्सेप्शन आ रहा है, प्रोग्रेट होता है, सब
हम्म।
बता दिया।
हम्म।
थोड़ा बहुत मतलब जेंकिन्स का पूछा था, डिप्लॉयमेंट कैसे करते हो।
हम्म।
और गिटहब के बारे में एक दो पूछा था, मतलब चीज़ें कैसे रिलीज ब्रांच, मतलब कैसे तुम्हारा वो जाता है,
हम्म।
रिलीज कैसे जाता है।
हाँ।
तो बस वो लास्ट राउंड मतलब ठीक गया था वैसे।
अच्छा।
तो हाँ मतलब पहला राउंड और लास्ट राउंड बहुत अच्छा गया। बाकी
अच्छा।
2 राउंड में मुझे ज़्यादा उम्मीद थी नहीं कि होगा करके, लेकिन थोड़ा मतलब लगा कि किस्मत भी साथ दी उस टाइम, मुझे ऐसा
हम्म।
लगा।
हम्म।
शायद मुझे ऐसा लगता है, अभी भी लगता है ना ऐसा, कि मैं शायद उतना डिज़र्व नहीं करता जितना मिला है करके 16-17 का। लेकिन फिर भी मुझे ऐसा लगता है ना कि मतलब थोड़ी किस्मत भी कहीं पे साथ दी मेरी, मतलब
हाँ
1-2
हाँ
राउंड
हाँ।
मतलब मुँह टूट गया मेरा कि नहीं होगा करके, लेकिन बाय द वे दे कंसीडर इट,
वो
मतलब
हाइट ऑफ द बाइनरी ट्री पूरा बताया नहीं, फिर भी ले लिया, मतलब वहाँ पे किस्मत है, मतलब अच्छा सा।
किस्मत है, मतलब हाइट ऑफ द
हाँ
बाइंड्री। लेकिन
हाँ।
मैंने ऐसा किया ना, मैंने टाइम वेस्ट नहीं किया, मतलब
हम्म।
कि मैं करूँगा ये, मैं ट्राई करता हूँ, मैं आपको बताता हूँ, मैंने कहा मैंने किया ही नहीं हुआ है।
हम्म।
आप मतलब कुछ लीनर का पूछ लोगे देन आई विल डेफिनेटली डू। लेकिन इस चीज़ में ना तो पहुँचा ही नहीं हो, तो मैंने ऐसा बताया कि अगर यूज़ होगा आपके प्रोजेक्ट में तो मैं कर लेने वाला, और क्या।
हम्म।
मैं ओरेकल में यही बोलता तो वो दिखा देता यूज़ करके, वो कि यूज़ हुआ है करके।
हाँ वहाँ तो यूज होता है तो बता देगा।
हाँ मतलब वही है ना कि मतलब थोड़ा हो जाता है, मतलब
चलो
वही चीज़
बढ़िया है,
मुझे
ऑल
लगी।
कॉन्ग्रेचुलेशन मिल तो गया है कम से कम।
हाँ, एक ऑफर तो है, मतलब वो तो है। बाकी तो उसके बाद ना थोड़ा मतलब उतनी टेंशन भी नहीं होती, मतलब इंटरव्यू के टाइम उतना पैनिक नहीं होता जितना मतलब होगा अगर 1-2 महीने से निकल गए हो।
हम्म।
सो ऐसे में मतलब 3-4 ऑफर मिले, लेकिन 10-10 के मिले तो मैंने लिया ही नहीं, मैं क्या करूँ उसका।
हाँ
वो
हाँ
बोल रहे हैं कि 40% देंगे, 50 में। मैंने कहा रहने दो भाई, आप रहने दो, नहीं इंटरेस्टेड नहीं है। अभी वही है ना कि मैं सोच रहा हूँ ना कि यूकेजी का मिल जाएगा ना तो एक करियर में पुश मिल जाएगा वो चीज़
हाँ
का।
हाँ हाँ।
16-17 मतलब पुश हो गया, मतलब फिर
हाँ मतलब
अभी
कुछ
उसके
एक
बाद ना
तुम्हारा
फिर,
बेंचमार्क सेट हो गया, अब इसके नीचे
हाँ,
नहीं
फिर
जाओगे।
उसके बाद अभी इवन अब मैं 1 साल बाद अभी टीसीएस में भी जाऊँगा ना, वो भी दे देगी भाई कि ले
हाँ हाँ हाँ।
30% तक आ जा।
30%
तो
मिनिमम देगा ही देगा।
हाँ, वही है ना, तो
यहाँ अगर दो
वैसे
तीन
ही।
महीना भी काम कर लिए तो तुमको एक वो मिल जाएगा, एज मिल जाएगा, मतलब इसके
हाँ,
नीचे तो
वही है
नहीं
ना।
जाओगे। तो मेरे ख्याल से
हाँ,
चले जाना
मतलब
चाहिए, मतलब ऐसा नहीं कि सबको निकालती है, हो सकता है वहाँ परफॉर्मेंस इशू होगा या कुछ प्रॉब्लम होगा। अभी
हाँ,
धीरे
मतलब
धीरे
कुछ
इकोनॉमी
प्रॉब्लम
सही
है।
जा रहा है, अभी इकोनॉमी सही हो रहा है धीरे धीरे, तो अभी हायरिंग फिर
मैं
से शुरू हो रहा है।
दोस्तों उसको से पूछा है, मतलब वो बता रहे हैं मतलब ठीक ही है सब कुछ अभी तो।
हम्म।
सो अभी तो मेरी टॉप प्रेफरेंस तो वही है, मतलब।
हाँ
लेकिन फिर भी मतलब 1 महीने आया तो आई जस्ट डू कि मैं हर चीज़ ट्राई कर लेता हूँ, जो भी होता है।
हाँ
जितने भी कार्ड है सब निकाल ही देता हूँ, क्या ही
हाँ।
छोड़ना।
जेपी मॉर्गन,
वही।
मॉर्गन स्टैनले और ये माइक्रोसॉफ्ट, ये सबका देते रहो
हाँ,
मतलब।
मुझे हाँ, गोल्डमैन सच का कॉल आया था अराउंड 2-3 महीने पहले। तो
हम्म।
उसकी भी अचार बड़ी अजीब सी, मतलब ऐसा था ना कि वो कॉल कर दी उन्होंने, 4 बार कॉल किया हर एक हफ्ते में, कि
हाँ
पीयूष तुम्हारा मैं फ्राइडे का इंटरव्यू शेड्यूल करा दूंगी।
हाँ हाँ
कर, आर यू रेडी? मैंने कहा हाँ ठीक है ठीक है। उसने मुझे 4 बार कॉल किया है करवाने को, वो बोलती लास्ट में कि कुछ प्रॉब्लम है चल रही है इंटरनली, इस वजह से नहीं करा पा रही हूँ।
अच्छा।
तो उसने 4 बार मेरा ऐसे ही काटा है बहुत गंदे तरीके से।
ऐसा ही
इस
करता है हम
चक्कर
लोग का,
में,
मतलब रिक्वायरमेंट होता नहीं है, बैकएंड में रखता है, मतलब बैकअप में रखता है, अगर
हाँ
भाई
मतलब
ये चला
बैकअप में
गया तो
रखता है।
फिर बैकअप में तुम रहोगे, इस तरह
फिर
से।
वो लिख के रखता है कि भाई ऐसा ऐसा है कि हाँ कुछ होगा तो इनमें से देख लेंगे फिर।
हाँ हाँ, और बैकअप में काफी लोग रहते हैं, खाली तुम नहीं हो गए, और भी बाकी सो लोग, सारे
अब
लोग रहते हैं।
बहुत सारे लोग
हाँ
अब उनका अच्छा बंदा मिल गया तो फिर बाकी का क्या लेना।
हाँ हाँ हाँ। तो उन लोग के लिए एक बैकअप ही रहता है कि मतलब एक नहीं तो दूसरा चला आ जाएगा। तो कोई
हम्म,
जाता है तो कोई आता है ना, तो वो खाली होगा वैकेंसी तब तुम्हें
हाँ,
रखेगा।
तभी वही
तभी
बात है।
इंटरव्यू होगा तुम्हारा, क्योंकि रिसोर्सेज का टाइम जाता है ना, तो उन लोग अपना प्रीशियस
हम्म,
टाइम ऐसे ही थोड़ी ना देगा, वहाँ भी तो काम होता है।
ये तो है।
ठीक है।
आप
चलो
अभी कहाँ पे हो मतलब?
अभी मैं बैंगलोर में हूँ।
मतलब कंपनी मैंने,
अभी
पता नहीं।
जनपैक्ट में, जनपैक्ट के क्लाइंट के
अच्छा
लिए काम कर
इनका।
रहे हैं। मतलब
अच्छा।
लॉन्ग टर्म क्लाइंट है, अच्छा क्लाइंट है।
अच्छा। ओके ओके। आप कुछ रोल वोल निकले जैन पैक में तो मुझे बताइएगा जरूर।
हाँ हाँ हाँ, जरूर बताएंगे। कितना एक्सपीरियंस है तुम्हारे? अराउंड 3 इयर्स हो गया ना?
मेरा 2.5 ही है, क्योंकि ना मैंने डिस्ट्रिक्ट में 5 महीने काम किया था, 6 महीने मतलब मेरा फुल टाइम है,
अच्छा।
मतलब सॉरी, और 5 महीने का इंटर्नशिप का है, तो इंटर्नशिप कोई लेता नहीं है। तो
हम्म।
5-6 महीने का वो है मेरा, अराउंड 2 साल का ये हो जाएगा मतलब दिसंबर में।
अच्छा
तो
अच्छा।
2.5 ही है, अभी 3 साल हुए नहीं पूरे।
ठीक है ठीक है, यहाँ पे 3+ इयर्स का था। एक बार रिज्यूमे भेज देना मुझे, मैं देख लूंगा।
हाँ ओके चलेगा।
ठीक है।
ठीक है।
और भी क्वेश्चन?
मतलब कुछ ऐसे पॉइंट्स अगर आपको लगे कुछ मैं कहा सकता हूँ इम्प्रूव वहाँ पे, अगर
इम्प्रूवमेंट
कुछ एक
तुमको
दो।
कोडिंग साइड ही मैक्सिमम करना है, थियोरेटिकल वाइज सही है, थोड़ा सा और प्रैक्टिस करना है बोलने में, फ्लुएंसी थोड़ा सा और लाना है। तो कभी कभी आप
हाँ।
मतलब बोल बोल का प्रैक्टिस करना चाहिए, जैसे कोई कॉन्सेप्ट सीख लिए, ऊपर छत में चले गए या कहीं घूमते हुए उसको प्रैक्टिस करो बोल बोल करके, किस तरह से एक्सप्लेन करोगे उसको फ्लुएंटली,
हम्म,
क्योंकि वहाँ टाइम बहुत कम रहता है ना, काफी क्वेश्चन पूछते हैं, तो थोड़ा सा अच्छे से एक्सप्लेन करोगे तो उससे एक इंप्रेशन अच्छा पड़ेगा।
हम्म।
कोडिंग प्रैक्टिस करोगे तो अच्छा हो ही जाएगा अपने आप। यही दो
हाँ
चीज पे नहीं
कोडिंग
पूछता है।
मैं कर लेता हूँ।
हम्म।
मैं कर लेता हूँ सिंगलटन इम्यूटेबल वाला, मैंने किया हुआ है, लेकिन अभी मैं थोड़ा ब्लैंक हो
हाँ हाँ,
गया।
वो प्रैक्टिस नहीं रहेगा दिमाग में आएगा ही नहीं। वो स्टेप्स दिमाग में बैठा लो कि प्राइवेट कंस्ट्रक्टर होता है, पब्लिक स्टैटिक मेथड होता है, फिर प्राइवेट मेथड होता है, फील्ड फील्ड्स के अंदर डबल चेक, ये सब स्टेप्स दिमाग में रख लो क्या 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 होता है, और दो
मैं
चार बार
ट्राई।
लिख लो नोटपैड में, तो उससे क्या होगा, कॉन्सेप्ट
हाँ ये
क्लियर हो जाएगा।
मुझसे हालांकि कि उसने आज तक कभी पूछा नहीं है तो इन दोनों चीज़ें।
हम्म
अभी ने इंटरव्यू दिए हैं, एक बार ही बस पूछा था उसने सिंगलटन वाला।
हम्म।
लेकिन मैं ये सब बाकी चीज़ देख लेता हूँ मतलब एक बार फिर से।
हाँ हाँ देख लो।
और ठीक चलेगा। चलिए ओके फिर।
ओके चलो।
गुड नाइट।
हाँ,
अच्छा
और
थैंक यू
उसमें
थैंक यू।
रिव्यू दे देना डॉक्यूमेंट में, ठीक है।
ओके ओके थैंक यू।
ठीक है चलो, नो
बाय।
प्रॉब्लम, बाय,
गुड
गुड
नाइट।
नाइट, हाँ गुड नाइट।